Hey everybody, and welcome to the third part of our advanced walk animation tutorial, which I find super exciting because at this stage our walk will really start to come to life. In this video we're going to hit the spline button and spend a lot of time in the graph editor, and here is how the result will look like by the end of this video. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything, and then go to the graph editor, and I'm going to click this spline button to make everything in spline. And the first thing, what I usually do is I'm just going to make a quick play blast without reference to kind of see how this animation really feels at this moment. It's important to identify the key problems now than to start diving deep into the details. So the first impression that I gain from this is probably the amount of up and down is a little bit too much, so I'm going to reduce that, and then I'm not getting a completely correct feeling of how she stops. I can see she's leaning back, but it's the consistency of this and probably the amount of this leaning back doesn't satisfy me. So I'm going to work on this area, and then when she starts walking, she straightens in this section a little bit too fast, I think. I want to maintain a little bit more of inclination forward in order to perform this walk. And here what I really care about at this moment is the amount of translation X from side to side. I think it's kind of very subtle right now. I probably will try to experiment pushing it a little bit more from left to right, but we'll see. But there is nothing like completely wrong right now in this animation, so I'm pretty happy about it. Alright, let's work on the COG first. So first of all, translation Y. As I said, I'm going to make it a little bit less drastic, and I'm going to manipulate just the down positions. So you see I have this section here, which I feel it's pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this part and just move it up slightly. And maybe I will move this down slightly. And then for this part, this is the part when the character starts to stop, basically. So, thinking something like this. Is the first thing. Then the second thing is, as I said, translation X from the front view. Let's bring the reference back. There's some weirdness in this section here. We'll fix it later. Let me see if I can push this just a tiny bit more. And this part, tiny bit more. And finally, translation Z. Okay, so translation Z, there are a lot of keys here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap the buffer, and then I'm going to start deleting these keys. It's good that in the previous stages I decided what the positions would be for the hips, but right now I'm really starting to worry about the consistency and how walk feels, how smooth it feels. Let's see what keys I want to keep and what keys I want to get rid of in kind of maintaining this curve. So So I'm going to leave this key. So let's see, so this is the start, so this is the first step. This is the second step. And starting from here, we have a normal walk. So I'll probably keep this key. I'll probably keep this key as well. So these I'm going to delete. And then after this, I'm going to delete probably until this point, because at this point the character starts to affect this walk, starts to effectively slow down. And slow down even more here. So let's go back. Find this key again. This is the key. This is the key that I'm keeping. And this is what I'm going to delete. And then this is the last step, I think. Yeah, this is the last step. So I'm probably going to keep this key to maintain this curve. And then here, I know we did something in this section. When she stops and goes back a little bit. So I'm probably going to delete this. Now, let's have it full screen. And let's go back at the beginning. Try to see how far are we from the buffer curve. So I'm going to delete these as well. And then I will start to bring this back a little bit. Just for consistency, you see this goes down, which I don't want. So I'm going to do something like this. And then for this, like that, and then here, I don't need this one. Here I'm going to push a little bit higher. So I'm going to try to go to the curve, to mimic this curve as much as I can. But I'm also worrying about the smoothness and the consistency. Should feel alright. Let's go ahead and play Blast one more time. Yeah, I think the amount of up and down is okay right now. I can maybe tone it down a little bit more, but I won't do this right now. I think right now the weight is not portrayed too well because the legs are not working. Okay, let's see what's going on in the front view. Yeah, I think it's feeling better as well. Alright, so next, let's see what's really going on under the hood here. So translation Z, I'm not going to touch anymore. I think, yeah, I'm not a big fan of what's happening over here. So what I will do is I would just push this a little bit forward, and I will probably bring this key back. So I'll do something like that, because I need to address this curve. And then I will remove this one. Something like this. And then here you can see that the hips are locked, they're not moving. Let's look closer to the reference. Maybe I would just give it a tiny bit movement. Just to not be mathematical about it. Doesn't make too much sense anyway. Alright, okay, so translation Y. So the COG is going up here, and then here it kind of stops. And if you think about this as an up position in the walk, and I know there is not a lot of up happening here, and there is not a lot of foot roll happening here, but I don't want to keep it at this level, so I want to just push it slightly, like that. So you see, when I select the curve or the key, there is this tracing of the buffer curves that I have, which is in step mode, and it's a little bit distracting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select everything and then snap buffer. This way I don't have to deal with the step mode anymore. So I want this feeling of the bouncing ball, slow ins and slow outs, but I also need to make sure that I'm doing this stuff correctly. The walk is probably one of the most frequent actions that we do in our lives, and we train ourselves to make our actions so refined and control the inertia of the ups and downs of these falls and raises. So it should be a little bit on the smoother side. So here I'm going to drop this slightly. And I'm probably going to introduce the key around here and drop this down. And for this, so here is what I do. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Going to remove this key, place the key here, move it down slightly, and then make this curve more like slow in. And slow out. And the same thing here. Going to go in the middle, respect the curve that I had before a little bit more. Same thing here. And here. So I'm looking at these areas, especially these areas, because here the gravity starts to take over, and we can't just, we need this a little bit of a hang time before we go down and catch the weight. Something like this, and also trying to respect the overall position of the curve. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. So this one is not bad. Just push it slightly like that, so I can have a little bit of a hang time here. And then 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to push this slightly to have a little bit of the rounded curve here. I would just kind of go and do something like this throughout all of the walk. And then I wouldn't worry about this part right now, so I'm going to keep it probably at 117 for now. Let's see how it feels. I think now it's time to focus on this first part, initiation of the walk, and I will probably change the timeline range so we can focus on just this part. Let's go to rotation Y and see what's going on here with the rotation Y. I'm also going to move this a little bit closer, like that. Rotation Y. So let's see what's happening in the reference. So the hips are rotating in this direction, then they stop. They're still rotating a little bit, which we have right here. Then they kind of stop. And then they start to rotate the other direction. So I can see that this here is incorrect because the hips are going that way, but they really should go another way. And the reason why the character is turning is because in the spine it's probably going the other way. Yeah, it's going the other way in the spine. So I'm going to actually do the opposite. The hips would lead this motion and the spine would drag. And then you can see here that from 27 to 33, the hips are not rotating that much. So I'm just going to keep them going a little bit. And then they should rotate because the stride is getting bigger. These angles are getting wider. And in the spine, let's select this as well so we can have a clue. So in the spine, in this rotation, The spine is dragging a little bit, but not so much. We should see the rotation in the shoulders. So I'm going to do even more here, so we can see a little bit of that. Push this. And then here, you can see that the shoulders start to rotate forward, especially on these frames. So I'm going to push this even more. Probably even more. And then I think I'm overdoing this slightly in here, so I'm going to push it down. Now let's see how this plays out. Let's see what the rotation X is doing as well. So there is a little bit of rotation down at the beginning, and then it stops. Again, I'm seeing these leftovers from the step mode, so I'm going to select everything and snap buffer. Go back. So this was like the pose of balance, and this is the beginning phase of the walk when the character should prepare, like get into the anticipation pose before the walk itself. And you see this rotation happening, and I think at this point here the rotation should stop happening and start to prepare to go the other way in this kind of anticipation movement. But the spine, I'm going to add this. This is the hips and this is the spine. So the hips are going this way, so they are basically, first the spine is not moving, kind of staying in balance, and then the spine starts to move forward a little bit. And I think I'm overdoing this slightly here. And then in this section, it continues to go forward because of the inertia, but the hips are starting to go the other way already. And you can see there is a moment here when the hips really start to go fast, and then this results into throwing the upper body forward. So I think we should exaggerate this a little bit here, and this is where when it starts to happen. So probably going to make it even less here. And like this. We push this down a little bit. And I think we can push this amount even more. I think I can push up the hips here a little bit, just to make this leg a little bit more straight. Okay, let's see the front view. I can see that I have a little bit of the movement screen right. It's not a big movement, but it's still a movement. like an antique before the antique. And I'm not sure if we need that. It's a very tiny move. I'm going to reduce it a lot. It's mostly all in the rotations. And then after this, we're starting to free up the weight from this foot. And I just need to make sure that this amount is enough. I like the amount of X. And I think I like the amount of Z as well. Yeah. And I don't think we need this antique. So it's just the rotations in Y and X. And then going this way. So let's go back to spine and see what the spine is doing as well. So this is the hips and this is the spine. There is a little bit of the movement in this direction for the spine. You can see this angle changes slightly. And then after this probably shouldn't go as much. It's just a rotation. And then after this, the hips should start moving. So the spine should start to counter this action, so we can remain in balance. So you see the hips are traveling screen left in this area, and I think the spine is not doing enough to counterbalance this. So I'm going to add this rotation, I'm going to add this rotation as well. Yeah, something like this. And from here, you can see that the hips are starting to go the other way and then go even higher. So I think this is working. The rotation Y I think is working as well. Okay, look at the neck. First of all, we need to always remember that the neck is part of the spine. So I'm going to select the spine and see what the spine is doing and what the neck is doing in the graph editor. This is the neck. So the neck is going up. Yeah, so there is a little bit of rotation in the hips this way. So the spine is countering this and the neck is countering this as well. But it's too much. We can see there is slight movement forward, and we can also see that the head is also going down. So this is working, I think. Okay, yeah, I see what's happening. So the head is going up and it continues to go up slightly, but it shouldn't, right? So it goes up a little bit here, which I think I'm doing a little bit too much. So I'm going to reduce that. And then there is the rotation back. So, and it starts even here at this stage. So let's see, going down. Then slight recoil up. And then down. And then after this, it starts to go up. So I'm going to push this frame here. Push it even more towards here, and then it starts to go up. I think I can push these values a little bit more. And the neck. So again, spine and then neck. This is spine, this is neck. So that the spine starts to rotate forward. The neck is going up with the head. I think we can drop this curve down and make the neck a little bit more consistent. Okay, let's play blast in both views, front and side. This is side. And this is front. So this head jiggle back and forth at the beginning, I know it happens in the video reference because she is looking down to kind of see what the path is, and then there is a recoil after that. We can keep it for now, but I'm probably going to remove it a little bit later. We'll see. Okay, now the walk itself. So we dealt with the rotations in Y. We need to see what's going on with the X here. So as you remember, the thing that bugged me a little bit at the beginning is that I like this angle, but then this angle quickly straightens up, and I think it's a little bit too much to do it this early. So I'm probably going to keep this angle a little bit higher still. Something like that, and then if it starts to straighten, let's do this here. And I know that we have some of the rotations here for the hips. This is something that we will also work on. So it starts and then it goes like that, and then it stays the same way. And then in X for the spine, so let me turn the reference on here. And for the X with the spine, let's see. So what is what? This is spine, this is hips. They'll already start to go back, and I think it's too early. It's probably this motion that's bugging me a little bit. It's too early to come this way, I think, that much. So I'm going to bring it back, and I'm going to bring this a little bit back as well. Just a tiny bit. So this, what's going on here? Okay, this is still the walk. I'm going to keep this pose. And I'm probably going to push this in this direction. And I'm going to push this slightly. Okay, we'll come back to these curves a little bit later. Now let's focus on Z, and finally we can start the legs after that. So, first step, second step. 51. Okay, so we start with this roll. You can see that this roll starts to happen around this area. So if I make the breakdown here for the roll, press the S key, and oh, I see what's happening here. Because we switched to spline, we need to go back to the settings, and in animation, auto span legacy, I believe, is the default. To be honest with you, I'm not a big fan with this auto ease, auto mix, auto custom stuff. I think it's Maya trying to do a little bit more for you, and I'm really not a big fan. I like when I expect something simple from the software, and then I can augment this simplicity with my hands. I'm going to delete this key, and I'm going to press the S key, and yeah, this is the auto span. So I'm going to reduce this roll at the beginning. And I think I'm going to reduce this as well a little bit. And you can see also that there is a little bit of rotation in Z. I think I did this inside view, inside control. So let's see. So it's a little bit to the side as well, which I not like, to be honest, because of the flatness of this foot. So I'm going to bring it back slightly. Otherwise it just feels weird, like she's not standing on the floor. And then it goes like that. I also think it's too much of an angle. And I think this angle is being kept for longer, and even it goes even more like that. So just move this key a little bit here. And you can see that this leg is traveling in X as well. And then it stops. I think we could push it more like this. And I want to point out that this line, you can see if you draw a line from the end of this foot to the heel, you can see that it's almost lays in one line. And I think we're not doing that. And I think that we should. So I'm going to push them slightly together like that. And then let's go back to our time range, our initial time range. So this foot rolls up. Like this, and that's what we're doing here. Still rolling up. And the reason it rolls up is to do this little rotation. And I think, yeah, we're doing this rotation as well. Probably starting, let me see when this rotation starts. Probably should start a little bit earlier. And it should stop around here. At least it should slow down. So I'm going to push this curve down. And then afterwards. So I will try to keep this a little bit closer to here. See, this is the main moment when it goes down like that, and then it starts to roll up. So let's see how this looks in this view. So this is probably not enough of the foot roll, because you can see that this leg is overextended now. So I'm just going to push it slightly forward like this, and then here make the curves a little bit nicer. Okay, now we need to track this arc and this spacing. The spacing of the foot. So I'm going to bring up the Epic pen. I'm going to start tracking the spacing. The spacing looks pretty good. My only note would be maybe this jump is too drastic. So I'm going to push it back a little bit. And up also. And then what I'm not a big fan of is that this spacing here is smaller than this spacing here, because we genuinely want to keep the leg in the air for as short period of a time as we can. So I'm going to push this a little bit more, and I'm going to push this a little bit more as well. And then redo the spacing here, the checks. So this should accelerate more. This should accelerate more. And this should be closer. And higher as well. So let's take a look at the graph editor as well. here we can push closer a little bit. And a little bit higher maybe. Maybe foot roll. Like this, slightly lower. Yeah, I'm pushing this too much, so I'm going to bring this everything down here. Let's also go to orthographic view, because I'm in perspective, so it's a little bit skewed. So again, this is the biggest spacing, and it's incorrect. It shouldn't be the biggest spacing. So it starts to accelerate here, and then this should be around here. Like that. Maybe even more. Something like this. And then from the front view, so you can see it's not just the foot roll that's going on here. It seems like the leg is rotating as well. And do I have these rotations? They're coming from the side view. Just trying to find out where is it coming from. It's probably coming from this action. And I think that by this point there should be no side. So here, if you look closely, you can see, first of all, this rotation, you can see this shape, and we have this shape because of the rotation Z. I can maybe add a little bit more, like that. But what ultimately what I'm worried about is this arc, a little bit of an arc. This is not as defined as on the other steps, but what usually happens is you see this translation in X going that way, screen left, especially visible here, just to go around this leg. So let's work on that. We have a little bit blocked in already. So this is still on the ground in this area, and I think we can also do this. It's probably this toe control. It's also rotating around this point. And I think we can add a little bit of a foot roll as well. Like that. Going back to the translation X, it's probably shouldn't start until the foot leaves the ground. Can push it more. Like that. And then after that, the leg has been placed on the ground. It goes in a little bit. And I really like this angle. So I'm going to the side view and I'm going to add this angle. And also, as you can see, the leg is facing this way. It's rotated a little bit out and then it's going really quickly. It rotates like from this frame. This is a big rotation towards this area, and I think we can do this, something like that, and then just make sure that this rotation is a little bit more pushed. It's a quick move. Now this foot. So this foot was standing and we did the foot roll already. I think it's too low. I like this pose. I like how it's hovering. However, I think it's still too low, so I would push it just a tiny bit more. So one thing I want to avoid is for the leg to go down and then up and then down again. And the reason why this is happening is because we have translation Y, but we also have foot roll, and foot roll is getting in the way. So what I want to do is I want to, first of all here, I want to get higher. Like this. And then after that, even here, I want to be slightly higher. And then it goes down. So something along these lines. Let's go to this view and see what's going on in X. So we have this side. This is the side that we checked. This is very subtle. Should be very subtle. And then translation X starts to really accelerate during this segment, and then it just goes down. So I think we need to push this more so we can see this motion, screen left, and then starts to go down. You can see again this quick motion. It almost doesn't change here, and then it quickly rotates this way. And we have absolutely no rotation happening whatsoever. Yeah, there is slight rotation happening this way. It's very small and subtle. And then I'm going to insert a key here, and push it a little bit more like that, and then quick rotation in, and then it stops. So quick rotation this way. Something like that. And then it stops, so it should be here. And these frames. Switch to auto. So it starts, and then it kind of goes like that, and then I was still missing this big motion. I'm going to just add the frame here. So for animation, we usually do this. We do this acceleration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break the tangent, and I'm going to make the curve look like this. So this way, it will start a little bit slow, and then it accelerates towards the floor. So it takes 3 frames to go this way. Maybe I'm overdoing this slightly. Yeah, I'm probably overdoing this, so let's help this foot go forward a little bit. And then here, I will manually do something like this. So it's going to accelerate like that, and this spacing will be small, but we shouldn't worry about this. It's just that in this frame, the foot already hit the floor. So it should look correctly. Right, let's make a play blast. Alright, let's take a look at what's happening with the hips and with the spine from the front view. So I'm going to select both of them. So it's going screen left, and the hips are rotating this way. I would push this more. And then looking at the spine, I see that this part of the spine is going the other direction, but this is not. So I'm going to push this to drag a little bit too. And then going into this position. And then the extreme for this rotation should actually be a little bit later. Let's see what the hip is doing here. I feel like this is still tilted this way. And I can see that this angle is still not changing much. If anything, it's even increasing here. So I'm going to pull this more, like up to here probably. And then it starts to rotate back. Let's look at the hips, just the hips. I think we can push this much higher, like that. And then going back to the spine. So the spine starts to rotate the other direction. Let's do this for consistency. And then I think we can push it more here. And then here, I think we can push it even further. And it's still going this way, as you can see. So the leg is going up. Then the hips start to rotate up. I think I'm overdoing this a little bit too fast. Then they go in here. So you see how much of the rotation we have here. So I will come back to polish this a little bit later. Right now I'm just focusing on the general feel of the movement. So you see the hip is going up when this leg starts to go up. So for our rig, it's probably meant to happen. Yeah, it's happening right here. And then the spine is still dragging. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag it one more frame. And then it's going the other direction, but I think it's going too fast. So kind of see this relationship between the spine and the hips. Maybe a little bit more, like that. And then here, we can push it a little bit more. You can see this angle continues to go that way. So for the spine, we'll continue to go that way, and I think for the hips as well. So the hips probably until here. Let's see what's going on with our rig. Yes, this is when they start to go back. And the spine as well. So I'm going to push the spine to this frame, going to remove this key. And then I think this is too much, and this is too much. So probably until here I will keep the hips. This is the hips. So I will keep the hips here. Yeah, probably a little bit sooner, like that. And I will keep the spine until here. And then they start to go back like this. And we'll polish it even more at a little bit later stage, but right now I think it's fine in terms of the rotation Z. Okay, now let's look at that y-axis. So the y-axis for the spine and the y-axis for the hips. So let's look at the hips first, and probably going to use this view for the y. So we can see this motion. Rotating this way together with the leg. And then this rotation starts to accelerate a little bit because the legs are going apart. Then it starts to go back. All the way until here. I almost want to push this one frame earlier, because the legs are wider apart on this frame, and then it starts to go back. Maybe here we'll do the same. Let me see. Yeah, the legs are wider at this frame, so I'm going to push this. And then this. So I'm going to delete this key and I'm going to ease in a little bit more. And then ease out of here. I don't need this key either. And then here, I would push it more. And then let's take a look at rotation Y for the spine as well. I think this rotation of the hips starts a little bit earlier. It actually starts even here, but for the spine I'm going to actually drag the spine. And then we start to rotate even more. Because I pushed this key, I'm going to push this key as well. And then will drag it like this. I don't need this. I push this key, so I'm going to push this as well. Let's see if I forgot to push this key. Yeah, I probably forgot to push this key, so I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. This is fine. I don't need the middle one. I'm going to slow out here, slow out more, like that. And this for the hips. Push it one frame later. This is fine. Something like that. And now the arms. So there is a little bit of the movement in the arm here. Maybe I will add this closer to polishing, maybe I will not, because it seems like it's related to frames before that, before we started animation. So I'm more concerned about when the movement actually starts. Like here, if you look at the arm, the torso is rotating, but the arm is staying in place, which means that the arm is dragging. And not only the arm, but also the shoulder, I think. Even here, we have a slight rotation this way. It's almost invisible when it starts. Yeah, I think we simplify this a little bit, so let me see. Yeah, it's too small. This rotation is too small. So I can add a little bit of it, just a tiny bit. And probably around here I'm going to press the S key and we'll start to drag after this. Let's see what direction should I go. So I'm going to go this direction. So I will drag this and I will drag probably around until this key. Just going to place this here, and then the arm is going to do the same thing. Let's give it a little bit of that, and then it starts to drag, so I will drag it this way. Even this is too much. Something like that. Yeah, I'm probably overdoing the shoulder as well. Let's see. Yeah, I'm overdoing the shoulder, so I'm going to scale this down. What's with this? Yeah, this is not helping either. So around 20 is our key. I have the key here. Start to drag it this way. I'm doing a lot of drag here. You see how there is a lot of drag in the elbow in this part, but not enough in this part. So I'm probably overdoing the elbow and not doing enough for this. Let's select everything together. These three. Shoulder first, arm and elbow. And after this, the arm starts to go this way, because this leg is going here. So it's going backwards, and then it starts to go forward. Still straightening. And then it starts to fold. The rotations are not much, so we're going to add the shoulder here, kind of doing the same thing that the arm is doing. Like that. And then we'll bring the shoulder forward. So this is the arm. I think we can start to rotate it a little bit more like that. And then even more. Deleting this key for the shoulder. And I'm going to slow in the arm. And you can see here the arm is still going in that direction. So I'm going to push this, I'm going to push the shoulder as well. And then it starts to go back after this. And I'm not looking at the elbow right now. In fact, I'm going to switch it off for now. So after this, this is the elbow, this is the arm. So the arm starts to go forward. Going forward. Still going forward on this frame. And I also think that I'm overdoing this forward with the arms. So I'm going to stay right around this area, which means that I need to push this higher. I will delete this key. Going to delete this key as well. And the shoulder. So the shoulder is technically ahead of the arm, but I'm not going to overcomplicate it right now. And I will just keep it on the same frames, and then we'll offset in the polishing a little bit later. Same thing here. Last step. Going to push the arm more. Going to push the shoulder more. Going to delete this for simplicity for the shoulder. And here I'm going to slow in the arm. Let's see how fast the arm is coming backwards. So it's going forward, Yeah, it's going a little bit faster backwards than it was forward. This looks good to me. And then this starts to go back. Now let's work on their elbow as well. So the elbow is dragging this way. Then it starts to unfold. Then it starts to go forward. I think I'm pushing it a little bit faster than I should. At this point, it's just dragging. So the arm starts to go back and it starts to unfold as well. But it's doing this slowly. Unfolding, unfolding. And then after this, the arm starts to go back and the elbow is dragging. So all these frames, it's going to drag. Going to do something like this. Going to adjust the tension here. I think I'm overdoing this. So I'm going to tone this down just a tiny bit. I don't need this key. Now if you look at the reference, you can see that this arm starts to go back on this frame. So I'm going to push this back a little bit. And I'm going to push the shoulder back like that. And then here, so the arm starts to go back and it starts to unfold as well. And it's going to do that until we start to go back and even further after this. So how many frames we had here? 1 and 2. 1, 2. So I'm going to delete this key, going to leave this key like that. Let's see how this plays. I think it's working. You see how much I'm pushing the left arm? I think it's way too much. So I don't have the reference from this side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this shoulder and that shoulder, and we're going to just do the opposite thing. So this is the right shoulder. And this is the left shoulder. Let me turn the reference off. So here you can see that the arm is not doing much. Let me select the arm. So there is nothing happening here. And I think what we can do when we go forward, we can push the arm slightly to the right like that. So it actually stays in place. Just going back. Still going back in this direction, maybe even more. And then it should really start to go back, because this leg is going forward. Yeah, I think I can push it more like this, and I'm going to add the shoulder as well. So it's going here. I'll add a little bit of the shoulder, and then more. Let's see, this is the clavicle, this is the clavicle, so I'm going to see what's going on here, so don't need this key. And then it goes this way. I'll push it one frame more, probably overdoing this slightly. So the clavicle should go the same amount of rotation. But push this a little bit for consistency. Just going to keep it very simple, like that. Until here. Going to push it slightly, like this. Or maybe I'm overdoing the clavicle. We'll see. If we need, we'll tone this down. So I'm going to push it here. Delete this. Go up like this. And then let's do the same thing with the arms. Select this arm and then this arm. Why here? Why here? So it starts to go forward. And I'm pushing it way too much. So I'm going to do something like this as the extreme. And the extreme actually happens one frame after this. So going back here, going back with this, don't need this key, start to go back, something like that. Again, I'm pushing it too much, so I'm going to return as we have here. And then finally the elbow, selecting this one, selecting this one. Let's see what's going on with the elbow. So this is this elbow. I actually also need this arm. So I'm going to select this rotation Y and left elbow and see what's going on here, and then I will start to look at this point as well. So right at the beginning, the arm is going back, so I'm going to drag this just a tiny bit. And then after this, I'm going to stop dragging. I'm going to unfold it just slightly, because we're going this way with the arm. Like that. And we'll drag for probably 2 frames. After this, 1, 2, maybe 3 at the beginning, because the walk hasn't started yet. And then here, I would actually start to bring it back. And I'm overdoing this a lot. We can see this. We select this. This is just way too much. So I'm going to bring it back. And going back to the arm. So this is the extreme for the arm. 1, 2. Excellent. Going back here. Slowing out. 1, 2. Dragging it slightly. Maybe even more. And then again. This is the extreme. So I'm going to push 1, 2. Going to delete this key. And this should really start to go back at this point. Awesome. So in terms of arms, what we're left with is the hands. Going back to orthographic view. And going back to the reference as well. So you see the arm is going in that direction, so I'm going to rotate it back slightly. We'll keep this position. And then we'll probably start to rotate the other way. Again, here it kind of stops. So I'm going just to do something like that, and that's about it. Now, this is when it starts to go backwards. And here I'm really concerned about what's happening on the screen as well, not as much as the video reference. This should be going this way, so let's see. Yeah, I think it should stop right around here, the overlap. Maybe even earlier, like this. So it goes back, like this, and then it starts to overlap the other direction. I think the elbow should travel faster. So you see the overlap, and then it starts to unfold. And I think I'm going to place the key here, and I'm going to push this a little bit higher to make this overlap really working. And then here, in terms of Y, I think right around here is enough, and then we'll start to go into the other direction. And then we'll rotate into that direction. And we'll overlap with the elbow. So the elbow in this frame starts to go back, right? So we need this to overlap slightly. Not too much, but slightly. So if this is the last frame, I would probably drag it. I would drag it one frame for now. If we need more, then we'll do more. Yeah, I don't think we need more at this stage. So, and then it's going back. Let's see, so this is this rotation, so we'll keep it going that way until we see the elbow starting to change direction. So it's starting here which means I will push it one more frame that way. Probably like this. Going to delete this key, going to push it slightly higher. And then afterwards, delete this one. We're going the other direction. So, going to push it one. Let me select the reference and just move it slightly. Yeah, it's not dragging anymore. So going back to the elbow and the wrist. So this is the elbow and this is the wrist. Okay, so I will do one frame. Delete this stuff and we'll go probably until here. I even forgot to block this. So I'm going to push one frame. And I'm going to distribute these keys a little bit better. Okay, let's look at the rotation Z for the arm. So I'm going to push it just down just slightly, so it doesn't just stick in place, like mathematically. So from this pose to this pose, I'm going to push it slightly higher. And from this pose to this pose, even more. And then keep it rotating. And then it starts to go back because the gravity is pulling it down. Like this. I will keep it this way. Let's see what it's doing from the profile so I get an idea. I can also see what's happening in the y-axis, so it's going this direction and then it starts to go back. So this means that here, let's push it back like this. Let's also check the rotation X. Up until this point. So we have this anticipation with the hips, and from here they start the rotation backwards. So I'm going to rotate the arm as well. Should I rotate it this way? Yeah. Just by a small amount, doesn't have to be big. Then it goes forward. Actually goes forward here. I think this is the last point when I will rotate them back. And then here I will rotate them forward a little bit. Like that. And I will keep it that way. Then afterwards, they start to go back. Yeah, that was actually incorrect. So from this pose to this pose, the arm is going forward. So this should go forward. So this is incorrect. It should go from here So it should be slight rotation here, and maybe even more. Like that, and then it should start to go forward. We don't want to rotate it all the way up here, because this is a very small move. A small rotation Y here. And then in Z we were going towards gravity here. And then the arm is going backwards. I'm going to keep it relatively close and then starting to go this way, like that, until you see how this arm is going back, but here it still rotates that way in Z, even though in Y we change the direction. I'm going to continue. This was the moment when we were passing the hips. And I think this is the final moment where we're passing the hips, and then we start to go back with this arm. Even on these frames. So starting to go back. And then it goes out like this. Yeah, probably on this frame it starts to go back. So it goes out like this, just not as much, and probably here is too much. And the same should go for the X, so I'm going to push the X, this frame here. Let's see, from this point of view, so we had this going forward, then it starts to go back here, so this starts to go back a little bit, still going back, still going back, and still going back on these frames. And this is when they start to go the other direction. So going higher. Probably overdoing this slightly. Yeah, I'm overdoing this slightly, both in X and in Z. Something like that. And then, looking from this view, they actually start to go the other way, and this arm starts to go the other way. So let's check. So this arm really starts to go the other way, which is great, but this arm should be, so this is the final, and then it starts to go back like that. So if I change this for this arm, I'm going to also make a change for the shoulder as well. Okay, let's focus on this arm. So in Z we're going back, probably until this frame, and then we start to go back in that direction. And in Y, same thing in Y, just not as pushed. And again X. Let me see the Z as well. Yeah, this is a good place to change the directions. I'll probably drag this a little bit more still. But X and Y, I will leave at this frame. And now the shoulder. The shoulder is pretty easy. We just need to check this relationship. So when the arm is like that, then the shoulder is at its lowest position. So here it's not moving too much. I'm going to keep it still. So this is a little bit higher as the arm starts to go forward. And then I'm going to select this, so I have rotation Y helping me. It starts to go back. And probably this is going to be the lowest point. And then after that, it's going up. Until the last moment here. So it's going up slightly, so we don't need this key. Going to just push this a little bit lower for consistency, and then so this is the highest part, so from lowest to highest for going back with the shoulder. And then it starts to go forward. And probably here is the lowest point. And then it goes up. But now it goes a little bit higher. So if this was low, then probably something like this is going to be our highest point. So I'm going to move it here and then just keeping it simple. And let's one frame later. And then again, keeping it simple on the way back. This is our lowest point. I'm going to do this for consistency, and then this is the highest point, but this is the highest point when the arm is back, so I'm going to do something closer to this. Don't need this key. And then after this, we're going back again. So this is going back, but this is out of our frame range, so that's fine. And absolutely the same thing goes for this shoulder. So I'm pretty satisfied with the results. I'm not going to touch the head rotation right now. I feel like it's working. We'll just need to polish it a little bit later. So what we did is 1, 2, 3 and started to do this one. I'm going to do the rest of the steps off screen. Let's see how much I need to do. So I'm going to finish this one, then this one, and then probably this one, and I will stop here. So I'm going to do these steps with the exception of the rotation X. So we have this rotation X going this way, screen left, and I'm not going to touch it just yet. The reason I want to do this off screen is just to save the time for this video, because I'm not going to do anything else except what we already have done. It might end up that I will need to shorten this final step, just because as I'm watching this, I'm seeing like this step is big, then it gets a little bit shorter, but then this one, it's shorter, but it's the final one, so I feel like we need to shorten this just a tiny bit, and then we'll work on this part together. Alright, this is how it looks like once I worked on these additional steps. And I did shorten this last step just a tiny bit at the end. So now what we have to deal with is the rotation X for the spine and for the hips, especially here in this segment, and then basically the rest of animation when she stops. So let's go ahead and see. 150 is our last frame. I will also make it 150 here. So let's pick a moment before this step, like for example 75. Let's see what's going on. There is a hitch at the end if you look at this area here. So let's take a look at the graph editor. First for the hips. Okay, so looking at the rotation X, so we can see here this big slope down, then a little bit of recovery, and then going back again and again. I'm thinking about pushing this up, especially this part. I think we are going way too fast into shifting the balance back like this. So she will start to shift the balance on here and then continue shifting the balance back. Then kind of rebound and then going like this. So now let's focus on this part. The hips are rotating forward here like this. And then we need to stop that rotation, I think right around here. And push it back. Like this. And then for the translation Z, because the hips are reversing like that, it has to break the slowing, this slow curve. So I'm going to place the key here. So I know that this is the moment when the hips start to reverse. So I'm going to place the key here as well. And then once the hips start to reverse, then a couple of frames, we can let it go in the same direction, and then we'll need to reverse the hips as well. So this would be the apex, basically, and then we will go back like that, but just not to the same amount, right? So just a tiny bit lower than this. However, I want to respect this curve here, so I'm going to push this a little bit down. And then there is this moment, this one, here when it seems like the head is stopping and there's a lot of counter animation happening. So we can take a look at the spine and the hips all together. And I'm interested in rotation X. So we'll polish these curves a little bit later. I'm just worried right now about the general movement. First of all, I'm going to remove this key to make this curve a little bit nicer. And then it kind of, as you can see, it kind of goes into here, and then the curve changes and starts to rotate quickly back. So I want to smoothen this out. Even this here, I'm going to delete this key. And let's see what's going on. Maybe more. And then we have a rebound from here. So this is probably also going to change. So we had this rotation back. This is the rotation back, right? So we had this rotation back, and then the hips start to go the other way. So we probably need to go the other way as well, a little bit earlier. And I'm going to make this very subtle. To be honest, I think that we don't even need this key. And then let's take a look at reference also. There is this nice rotation with the hips, left and right. So let's check the y-axis. So this is rotation this way with this leg facing forward, which is fine. Then it's the other leg, but it's not as much, it's not as this, because it's just a tiny bit forward. We maybe even want to push it down, but we'll leave it to polishing stage. And then it's going the other way like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to amplify this a little bit more. Maybe that's too much. And then I'm going to select the spine as well. Like this, and I will select the hips too. First, the spine drags and it goes into another direction. So if we look closer to this line where the shoulder is located, we can see that it's almost no rotation. But after this, and maybe I'm even overdoing this slightly, so I'm going to dial this down. But then the hips, they started the rotation, so the spine should start following that rotation as well. So let's see. We can offset this stuff a little bit. And then after this, the spine is going back. Yeah, I think I'm overdoing this part. Maybe it's all too much, so I'm going to dial that back a little bit. Let's play blasters. Yeah, I think that the hips are working. It's hitting the wall a little bit. It's because of the rotation X in the spine. Neck is not polished and the head is not polished. We'll come back to it. But I think it's looking pretty nice. I will reduce these rotations even more. So let's say I'm going to get rid of this key here, just for simplicity. Alright, let's take one more look before we start polishing. Okay, so definitely we have some stuff to clean up here, but overall for the spline pass I think it looks okay. Let's check the front view. It's a little bit too much of swinging left and right, so I'm going to reduce this. And most of this comes from the spine, a little bit from the neck as well. Yeah, and there is something coming from the neck, so maybe the neck is traveling too much as well. I can also see this frame, which is not helping. Let's see if it happens. No, it doesn't happen every time. It just happens on the first. Well, not on the first. It happens here as well. Here it doesn't happen. Okay. So I'm going to bring this back. Let's check here. It doesn't happen here, so I'm bringing this back, and I'm going to bring this back as well. So now they start going back together, but you can see how this curve is fast, but this is not fast, this is slow. So I'm going to do something similar here, so they're working together kind of. This is very unpolished here, so we're going this way with the spine, and then yeah, this is too fast. Okay, let's see. This is the hips. Not entirely correct, so the hips should actually, they should start going this way and then relax into this position here. Let's also see the translation X. Yeah, so we need to have a little bit of back and forth. Let's see also what Y is doing. So on Y we are going down and then up and then down again. So this would be the final point here, and maybe I will push it just a little bit, something like this. And I will push the rotation Z also that way. And then after this, we can go back a little bit. So we have recoil here from left to right. Maybe I'm slightly overdoing this, so I'm going to really dial that down, and in translation X probably as well. Okay, I think we are prepared to start polishing this shot. As always, hit that like button if you want to support me, subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much for watching. Next time we're going to finish this.